Welcome to the Investing Podcast presented by Tusk Media. This is Outsider Trading, an audio and video deep dive into the people, places, and things that we find most interesting in the market.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Investing Podcast Monday, October 31st, 2016. It is Halloween. Ben, no dressing up?
No, not today. I was thinking about coming as Jim Grant, but I can't get a bow tie tied. So.
Oh man, that would have been good. Matt Krebsbach we've said this, he looks a lot like Jim Grant.
I was going to just leave that to him and say, I wasn't even going to try for Jim Grant, but, Krebs, he's just not the dresser up kind of guy.
I kind of go all out every year for Halloween, so this year went with the white male in the South costume. So there you have it. I'm not Donald Trump, just a white male voter in the South. Did you have a good weekend?
I did, yeah.
Good. Solid weekend. We did our picks on football. We hadn't done a video on these as much. You continue to dominate. You've got like an 8-game lead on me. I've got, I think, like a 6-game lead on Sam and Krebs are tied, duking it out, which is funny because I don't know if you remember when we started making these picks, and if you're just joining us, we make picks on like 7 to 10 football games every week. And when we first started it off, Krebs was like sweating I want whoever gets second to get their money back, like trying to hedge his bets, because we all put $100 on the season-long tally. And the irony is now they're duking it out for last place. Interns got their pick right, so they're 6-2-1. They had one push season long. So
what was
really
their pick this week?
Auburn.
Okay.
They continue to ride Auburn. You missed 2, so you were 5-2, only 7 games. I was feeling great about mine going 6-1, because when I grade these, I just go like the column, and I'm like, yes, 6-1, and then I was like, Ben was 5-2, so I made up 1 game.
The thing is, I was trying to support your team. I picked Georgia.
That's like a classic mistake. You should have asked me for feedback. It was bad. I didn't even really watch that game.
They were up at one point.
Yeah, it was. Our offensive line is worse every week, which shouldn't happen when you're healthy.
Yeah.
Before we get going, a couple housekeeping notes. Shout out to the Cooper firm right here, relentlessly pursuing justice. They sent us a mug. We do the free mug and swag challenge. If you send us some stuff, we'll use it on air, and we're starting to get a little traction on these videos. You can't really tell how awesome this mug is on audio only, but on video, you can see it keeps your coffee warm, all that good stuff. They sent us a lot. They sent us Yeti cups, mugs, pens, nice little gift sets. So thanks.
So if you want to pursue justice.
Relentlessly, no less. Thanks to the Cooper firm here. Let's try the coffee. That's good podcasting right there. So thanks to them. If you want to send us something, check us out on Twitter at Tusk Media LLC. Just hit us up. Send you an address. Free promotion. It's hard to argue with. We've gotten some really cool mugs and some mugs from companies that we don't really like our telecom provider. So we'll rag on them maybe later in the week. Also on Twitter, if you go to twitter.com/TuskMediaLLC, our pinned tweet, which is the tweet at the very top, you will see a link. We are doing the full-blown Movember contest thing, fundraiser, in November. So not shaving. At a minimum, we're all going to try to grow mustaches. I'm not a facial hair guy. It's going to get bad.
Yeah.
Real bad. But so we're doing that. We have a page for the whole team here at Narwhal Capital and Tusk Media, so you can check that out. We're trying to rise up that leaderboard in terms of raising money. Team name is Mo Money, Mo Problems. Raising money to basically help out with awareness for men's health issues like prostate cancer, all kinds of stuff. And we're also doing other health challenges with that. So it's not just about raising money and growing really crappy facial hair. We're also all going to take some kind of healthy pledge, whether it's to exercise more or whatever. We're just doing it for a month. I mean, same old guys, don't worry. It's not a prolonged change. But check that out. Should be a good time, and we're going to do a lot of updates on that throughout the month. Let's jump in. I think that's all we got for the housekeeping. Futures up just a little bit. I don't have the notes in front of me. I sent them to intern Barrett. He's going to have them scrolling right there. But futures are up a little bit. I think NASDAQ futures are in the lead, up about 30 basis points. Gold down just a little bit. Oil down just a little bit. Oil, we didn't really talk about it last week because we've done a lot of individualized kind of analysis on individual companies. But all of a sudden, oil was trading up above that $50 mark, and now it's at 48.
Yeah. Well, it was a surprise. The OPEC deal now is all of a sudden they might not go through.
Oh, go figure. And if you want to know our thoughts on OPEC, you can hit subscribe and listen to all our other stuff. We're kind of calling their bluff for a prolonged period. So let's jump in. First things first, talk about more just mergers, more acquisitions. Lots going on here. Level 3 is getting acquired by CenturyLink. This started getting rumored last week.
Yeah.
The deal was formally announced today. Really, really favorable terms for LVLT. Stock is up like 8 or 9%. CTL, on the other hand, is down about the same amount. What are your thoughts on this? Good, bad?
Yeah,
any real commentary?
If we go back to last week, I remember we just got back from Chicago, and then we saw the rumor of some deal combination between the two. And we didn't really know who was going to acquire who, and CTL spiked, and it's like, well, any deal is a good deal. So, you know, and then as the deal has evolved, it's really clear that CenturyLink is buying Level 3 in order to really buff up its own business. And very much a defensive acquisition, not the type of acquisition you want to see them do, especially when they're paying out a lot of their free cash flow to the extent they have it on the dividends. Like, where's the money going to come from?
And at a steep premium.
At a steep premium,
Very, very sizable premium here if you look at the deal terms, which we did in our pre-production meeting. So not a surprise that Level 3 is kind of going up and that the market's not quite as excited for CenturyLink. We are holders of CenturyLink. I think we trimmed a little bit last week. That was certainly fortuitous. But we're still holders. We do like that dividend a lot, but it does kind of come into question. You know, a lot of times we've held CTL. I can remember us having price targets that were almost derived kind of as a fixed income play in some regards, because it just pays this steady dividend. But now when you see an acquisition like that, it does somewhat alter the investment thesis. So definitely something that we're going to be taking a closer look at over the course of the week. We may or may not update our numbers and our thoughts, and we may or may not share that on podcast. But so an interesting deal there. Lots of deals though. Another one. GE and Baker Hughes. Interesting little energy play right here for GE. GE stock up about 2% in pre-market on the announcement, and Baker Hughes up about 8.5%. So one of those rare, seems like it's pretty rare where we actually see both companies go up.
Right.
Typically, if you see one company involved in a merger or an acquisition up 8%, you almost expect the other one to be down significantly. But GE up a little bit. What are your thoughts on this one?
Well, the oil service space has been so under pressure by the low energy prices and just the lack of utilization. So in that space where Baker Hughes plays, you basically have three really large players, and then you have a lot of smaller players around. But the ones who really move the needle are Baker Hughes, BHI, Schlumberger, SLB, and Halliburton, HAL. And together those three really comprise a lot of the major energy services in the United States. So to the extent there's any consolidation in the industry, obviously GE has its own arm as well. To the extent there's consolidation, there's more pricing power, there's more rationalization of supply. That said, first of all, you have deal risk with this when you go from really four large players to three. And then also, you know, I'm sure the Halliburtons of the world, Schlumbergers of the world are going to trade up a bit on this. But the likelihood of another deal coming through is very low in my opinion, because it's just there'd be so much regulatory risk. So much. And I think all of them are kind of running scared right now. You almost need a GE or a large conglomerate to acquire them, because you know consolidation within the space.
Yeah, they're not going to accept that.
Right.
Yeah, it's kind of one of those weird things. It's almost like there's like this pseudo magical number. Where once you get to a point, I don't know exactly what that number is, and it probably varies, you know, sector or industry by industry. But you get to a point where it's okay. Well, we're going from 4 to 3. We're not going to go from 3 to 2. 4 to 3, maybe if we have a diversified conglomerate like GE coming in and doing that, because this isn't necessarily a play just to dominate one space by another player in that space. But it seems like there's still a little risk in terms of approval, but it will probably go through. But yeah, after that. It's hard to picture more consolidation within that little sector of the industry.
Right. And will, especially for HAL and SLB, you know, they'll probably almost certainly trade off of oil prices. So regardless of kind of what machinations go on, the longer term is where is oil going? Right. How much activity will there be in the United States?
Sticking with GE and switching gears a little bit to airlines, the flight at O'Hare that caught on fire the day after we were there.
Right.
So dodged that one. That's why we fly Delta corporately. Not really. But American Airlines flight, engine catches on fire, the 767, and that was a GE engine.
It was, yeah. So I'm not sure. I was thinking it would be maybe a UTX engine.
Mm-hmm.
They're trying this new type of engine with a geared turbofan. Right now, it doesn't actually have gears in it. So the advantage of a geared turbofan is that the whole engine doesn't have to spin as fast, and you can be more fuel efficient. But there are moving parts. So I was thinking, maybe they're using a UTX engine. But they're using a GE engine, and so there does raise some question marks about what are the quality controls. I mean, GE is the company of Six Sigma, so I don't know if this was just a 0.0001% chance, or if their Six Sigma has some flaws in it. But.
Yeah, it was wild too watching just on Twitter. You started seeing like O'Hare plane exploded, and everybody was saying, "Oh, it was a test," and all this. And you start seeing tweets of like passengers like being evacuated, and like, if this is a test, it's very realistic. But I guess you're glad it happened on the ground.
Yeah,
I guess that's the upside there. But yeah, definitely something to keep an eye on to see what was actually the root cause, all that good stuff as we go on. And what else are we seeing in the airline space, especially in terms of kind of pricing?
Yeah, well, we talked about the idea of industries going from 4 to 3, 3 to 2. And so now in the U.S., you really have 3 large players. You could argue Southwest does have a large amount of market share in the United States. Internationally, it's weak. But so you have 3, arguably 4 major players in the United States, and right now they're being probed about price fixing and not being a full market with the pricing, which is strange because from the investment side, I've followed the airlines for a number of years now, and what you have is these companies, and they're lowering airfares. So oil fell, so everyone thought that margins on airlines will increase substantially. What happened is a lot of that flew through, pun intended, to the attendants and the pilots, and then they also reduced pricing a lot. They reduced pricing so much that analysts and investors are getting really irritated because they're not seeing the margin expansion that they really wanted to see.
Consumers are loving it.
Yeah. So they have this metric called passenger revenue per available seat mile, and that is has been in perpetual decline. Delta's saying that may flip to being positive at the end of the year, but even then it's like oil, if that is the case, oil is likely to be up on a year-over-year basis at that point. So you would hope that revenue would be up on a year-over-year basis as well. So good for consumers. Interesting that the government is still taking a hard line with respect to the pricing in the airline industry.
Yeah, and it certainly makes it challenging as investors because you kind of have this expectation, and it's almost counterintuitive. Even if you picture kind of an oligopoly, you expect pricing to be fixed higher rather than lower, and you're seeing these prices come down. Meanwhile, you have government intervention stepping in, seeing if this is, how coordinated is this and what's going on. Meanwhile, again, as investors, you're saying, wait, they should be higher. We want more margin. We want to make more. And you actually have the government stepping in and saying, no, you can't work together to make these prices even lower.
Right.
So kind of one of those odd things. I remember last week at the conference, Zell had the comment, he said, if you can't find a monopoly, find an oligopoly. Right. That was kind of his investment thesis. And I don't know how much water that really holds anymore.
Yeah.
In terms of, it just seems so overrun. When was the last time we talked about a real merger and we didn't mention regulatory environments?
Right.
It's pretty rare.
Indeed. The airline industry is particularly interesting to me because the barriers to entry for building your own airline are actually phenomenally low.
Yeah.
Because you don't have to buy an aircraft in cash. Right. You lease it, and you can really cut pricing. And
people are wanting to sell you airplanes.
Yeah. So the barriers to entry are extremely low. Very easy to start an airline. Almost, you hear of all these different people who have tried to start an airline in the past. Obviously, Richard Branson did. But then you also have Trump and Trump Airlines.
Yeah.
But Trump wasn't the only person who started an airline and failed. I mean, there's been a lot of people just because barriers to entry are so low.
Yeah. And speaking of Trump, great segue. No one has more respect for the airlines than us.
Yeah.
Let's talk politics. Crazy weekend. I feel like we kind of always say that. I don't even know where to begin. I think let's start with the polls. Start with something somewhat measurable. We are seeing polls tighten. We're starting to see what was maybe a 7 or 8 point edge nationally a couple weeks ago get down into that 3, 4, 5 range comfortably with a 2+% margin for error on most of these. What's interesting, I don't know if you've looked at this, and a lot of this, I listened to a lot of the 538 podcasts, and they kind of made this point, is the biggest factor they say is that the undecided population is shrinking.
Yeah.
Hillary, at least through Friday and Saturday data, and we'll talk about the storylines that may bleed in later, but at least through that, she wasn't losing support. It was that Trump was truly gaining the support that you would expect from a major party nominee.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and we've talked about this in the office for the longest time. It seemed like you're kind of fighting an uphill battle demographically as a Republican candidate, and given the electoral map of the last couple of elections, you gotta get big support. He was only hovering around 80% of the expected vote.
Right.
But he's starting to inch up closer to what you would expect, and again, it's kind of one of those things. It's not a football game. I think people like to think of, oh, well, when time runs out, it's over. The reality is it's not that way, because you have varied endpoints, and at the end of the day, you do have people who can actually have an outcome that's not based on the time.
Yeah.
You know, people aren't going to say, oh, when that clock goes off, I'm not going to do it again.
Right.
They are still, a lot of people are still going to do something, and that's
Yeah.
starting to kind of work to his advantage among likely voters. How do you think Trump's handled the last couple of weeks, really since the last debate, which I guess was about 10 days ago now?
Yeah. I mean, I think he's done well. I mean, just based on what the polls have done.
Yeah.
So if you look at the ABC Washington Post poll, I think that was like plus 12
Yeah.
just a few weeks ago, and now it's plus 1.
Mm-hmm.
So very interesting developments on that front, and it was also interesting because that used 38% of the people surveyed were Democrats, 28% were Republicans, and 30% were independents. So structurally, there's a 10-point advantage for Secretary Clinton. But you know that's true in the United States too.
Right.
I mean, there's a structural advantage for Democrats because there are just more of them.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very interesting to see the polls tighten so much when, honestly, I don't think he's done much differently. I think the media's reported a bit differently. We haven't seen major shoes to drop.
Right.
Obviously, we have the FBI issue.
Yeah, so the FBI issue broke Friday, in case you've been living in a cave. Comey came out, you know, famously in July. He seemed like he went 90% of the way of pressing actual charges against Secretary Clinton, and then said, at the very end, after saying she was negligent, this and that, gross misconduct, all of these things that just don't sound good, he finally said, but, you know, nobody's actually going to prosecute this. No DA in their right mind would do it. He technically left the investigation open. It was not formally closed, but he's come back since and said, hey, we've got information that we need to pursue. The craziest part of all this is somehow tied to Anthony Weiner. So basically, Anthony Weiner had a computer with his estranged wife that she also had access to it. They say it's one of those weird things where it's like, oh, it's Anthony Weiner's computer, but she had her emails on it.
You can't make this stuff
Which
up.
is just, again, one of those bizarre things, like, if my wife and I both worked in politics, I don't know why I would need her emails. I'm pretty sure somebody can give you a laptop or several devices and that kind of thing. But she, of course,
Hillary
is
had like 14 of them.
yeah. So Huma Abedin, I don't know if I'm saying her name right, but anyway, she's got emails on there. That computer got seized in the Anthony Weiner sexting scandal that we made light of several months ago on this podcast because we just knew it was going to matter. We knew it was going to matter. So that got seized. I think we set the over-under on Anthony Weiner sexting scandals to be at least 3.5 more before his time on Earth is done. So he'll be at the front lines of that. And I don't know if this counts as another one. I don't think it does.
Well, we'll see.
We'll find out. Yeah, exactly. But so what's wild about this is how little we know, and also how the varying reactions from either side are. Because you got Democrats saying, oh crap, we don't even know what's on here. Then you have other Democrats saying, this is ridiculous, this is crap, because we don't know what's on there.
Yeah.
Then you have Republicans saying, like, man, they must have something. And then you have Republicans saying, no, this is all posturing, they have nothing. And Comey's just kind of getting a little bit of revenge or something like that. So it's kind of wild. I've seen reporting that has said as many as 650,000 emails were found of hers on this computer.
650,000.
Crazy numbers, but which kind of ties into my theory, which is like there's no way we're going to get anywhere on this. But then you have other people saying, no, they've had that computer for weeks. They vetted as far as they could go without a warrant. Now they have a warrant. and now they can kind of fly through this. It does seem like if you're the FBI, you'd be able to take a massive file. This is how little I know about technology, so somebody may be out here watching this being like, there's no way they can do that. But it seems like if I'm the FBI, I could take a massive file of emails and cross-reference that with another massive file of emails that have already been reviewed and at least figure out, okay, is there anything we missed?
Yeah.
So it seems like they could have done that, and maybe that said, hey, there's 800 emails here, or the 33,000 that are missing, or whatever it may be. But Ben, what are your thoughts on this? I guess the whole thing, like, should the letter have been sent? I mean, my stance is kind of, he said he would notify Congress if there was a change or something that needed to be investigated. That's exactly what he did.
Right.
I don't think he's done anything wrong, but I also don't know that necessarily means, we're going to get a conviction of Secretary Clinton.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good question. It's very, very puzzling why he does that now.
Mm-hmm.
Because, and we were talking about this in the office on Friday. If he didn't really have anything, there seems like there's a good chance that he would just, wait, kind of have his core team, and he came out and was very defensive about maintaining the integrity of the FBI,
Right, and
the nonpartisanship of the FBI. So to then come out and do this is very surprising to me. So I kind of fall in the camp of he would only do this if there was something. The other issue you have is that he was appointed by President Obama. He does report to Attorney General Loretta Lynch, who's another Obama appointee.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just I don't really understand politics.
No one does.
Which is why if I ran, I'd lose for sure. But that's kind of the state of play.
Yeah, I think the thing that's interesting here, and there's a lot of subtleties here that really play to Trump's favor. It'll be interesting to see how he plays this because, one of my biggest complaints with Trump as a candidate is how distracted he gets.
Yeah.
It seems he's got some money. Supposedly, Friday afternoon, he poured $10 million of his own money into his campaign, which was very much strapped for cash. He's now got, just a couple days to really spend that. Seems like he could really target this, jump onto this. I don't think the right way to play this is stand your crooked Hillary, here she is, because I think that narrative's been played.
Yeah.
I think if you are on the border as to whether you trust Hillary Clinton or not, and that's the deciding factor of if you vote for her, you're off. You're out. I think that's the case. So I don't know that that's effective messaging, but I think what is effective messaging is even some of the language and the quotes that have come out from the DOJ, the Department of Justice, in terms of saying things like, this goes against every precedent we've ever established, to have news like this break this close to an election. I think that's a really powerful talking point for people who are maybe somewhat anti-establishment, tired of the old way things that operate in Washington, because at surface level, I don't care what you did, when you did it, if the election is in 10 days, that doesn't really matter. If you've done something wrong, it needs to be investigated and prosecuted.
Yeah.
And to kind of say, oh, well, this isn't on the timetable of an election,
Right.
I think that's more kind of Washington rhetoric of let's protect our own no matter which side of the party they're on. So I think that could be really appealing to people who are just tired of the same old, Washington charade.
I don't think, I don't think Trump should just completely avoid talking about it when asked about it, but I think he should try to refrain from talking about it when he's not prompted.
Yeah, stay out of his own way a little bit.
Because if he actually goes forth and, actually has a clear message, we hope.
Yeah.
And then for once, Hillary is now playing defense against the media, and he can really use that to kind of just sail high and take the high road.
And it really is wild how, and again, this is relative to her own impressive record of public speech. It is wild how different Clinton's talking points are voiced the second she has to go a little bit off the script that she's been able to maintain for 18 months. On Friday evening or Saturday afternoon, whenever it was, when she was actually speaking, addressing this letter, I mean, more ums and uhs than you ever see from her.
Right.
And again, the standard is very, very high. I'm not saying she sounded illiterate or sounded idiotic I'm just saying she didn't have that rehearsed, she didn't have it down pat. But then also just talk about deceptive messaging. She stated that the letter was only sent to Republican leaders when it's very clear on the letterhead that it went to 8 Republicans and 8 Democrats. But she clearly stated that it just went to Republicans. So watching her kind of tiptoe around that has certainly been interesting. again, who knows what's in those emails. The other thing I think that's interesting to keep an eye out for is, these October surprises. My thought is that there may still be another shoe to drop against Trump. You kind of think that it would be a good defensive strategy, and from what I understand, it's kind of common to keep an ace in the hole, so to speak. Keep something tucked back, have something hidden,
right.
Whether it's a huge bomb, the biggest Trump story, scandal, whatever yet, or just something relevant. You don't know, but at the same time, you kind of have to wonder what it would have to be if the Clinton camp comes out today with some Oppo research against Donald Trump. You have to wonder what it would be to actually move the needle. Because kind of like with the email scandal, again, this doesn't change what I thought about Hillary Clinton's emails. I still think she acted completely inappropriately. The outcome of that could have been a million different things. But so it'll be kind of interesting to see. You think they got anything else on Trump coming out?
I would guess so. Whether or not it actually does anything,
Right.
Is another question. In fact, it could backfire if it's just another tape.
Right.
People could say, we've heard this before.
Nice distraction.
This was planned, exactly.
Yeah. So definitely something to keep an eye on. We're going to probably do a lot of politics over the next 8 days. Election is next Tuesday. I think we're going to do possibly some live coverage or reaction to that. I would say just stay tuned to the podcast. We'll let you know about all that good stuff. Hit subscribe. Check us out on Twitter, especially so you can get involved in our Movember stuff. Again, twitter.com/Tusk Media LLC. We'll be back all week with all kinds of good stuff. Y'all have a good day.
Tusk Media is a subsidiary of Narwhal Capital Management. Ratings and reviews of Tusk Media content are not to be construed as endorsements of opinions, analysis, or services offered by Tusk or its parent company. The opinions and predictions shared here are our professional beliefs at the time of publication. We are not under duress from any of the corporate entities mentioned. This is not a solicitation to take any particular action. Although we are investment advisors, this information should not be considered investment, legal, or tax advice. We strive to be as impartial, insightful, and accurate as possible. We base our opinions, analysis, and calculations on information we believe to be reliable, but we cannot guarantee its accuracy. We can, however, guarantee that our opinions will sometimes be flat out wrong due to a variety of factors. Employees and clients of Narwhal Capital Management may or may not hold positions in the securities detailed and may or may not hold these positions in the future. A full list of all securities purchased, sold, or held during the 12 months preceding the date of this publication can be provided upon request. Unless otherwise noted, all data accessed via MarketWatch or the Bloomberg terminal. Past performance does not guarantee future results. A copy of Narwhal's Form ADV is available at the SEC's website, www.advisorinfo.sec.gov, or from Narwhal upon written request.